Today we're here with the amazing Wendy Sharpe, and we're going to investigate a little bit about her workspace and about her art practice. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Now let's get straight to it. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in the northern beaches of Sydney, Avalon, in a very supportive house. Parents who encouraged me to do what I wanted, which was paint. And I was always painting and drawing at school too. I was the illustrator for school magazines, drama productions and all that. So it's something I've always done.
Can you tell us a little bit about your art high school teacher?
I actually didn't usually have a great supportive high school art teacher. It really does make a difference, or it can make a huge difference if you do, but it was something that I wanted to do almost in spite of them rather than because of them. What
were you inspired by, or even artistically inspired by as a teenage growing up? What were you surrounding yourself with?
Like many teenagers, I was interested in surrealism, which I'm not interested in now, but that's what a lot of teenagers like. When I left school, I went straight to art school, and I was a student there. Lots of different courses, pretty much non-stop for about 7 years. That's course after course after course, and then had a gap and then another couple of years. So an incredibly long time of being a student, and I loved it. I didn't like school. I was picked on at school. It was the worst time in my life. I loved art school and realised that was more where I belonged than in school.
When did you decide, this is what I want to do, I want to be an artist?
When I left school, even though it seems out of character of me because I was always painting and drawing and I was very single-minded, always, I didn't know that you could be an artist. It was just not ever a thing that was ever, discussed anywhere by anyone. So when I finished school, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, and I was thinking, okay, I'm obviously going to draw and paint anyway, but maybe I should do something to do with English or go to university. I don't know. My mother was great, and she said, look, I was in this strange, confused state, and she took me to a technical college that was the nearest one to where I lived, and as soon as I walked in the door I saw all these plaster casts that you could draw from, and I saw all these posters of famous paintings and things, and I suddenly felt this is where I belong.
Can you tell us about how your art practice has developed or changed over the years to where you are now? Do you think it's grown a lot, or do you think it's just developing in its own way?
I don't really know. I think it's a continuous thing, so I can certainly say that. I've actually never done anything else. After I left school and I became a student for a long time, and years of studenting, I started, because you've got to live somehow, so I started doing some part-time teaching in evening colleges, community centres, and then in art schools. And I was also an artist model when I was young, in my 20s, so I was doing that to earn a bit of money. But all those things are all connected. I never did anything else. It's a continuous thing. There's never been a break from it. I've never stopped doing it.
Where do you get your ideas from?
You get ideas from anywhere or everywhere, but mostly you get ideas from other work that you've done. So a very, very common question is, how long did it take you to do that, whatever it is? I never really know, and when I say I don't really know, people think I'm being evasive, I'm being secretive or something. It's because it doesn't really work like that. Everything you do is the culmination of stuff you've done before. So you've been doing things that were similar, and this is a new one that's related to those, and so on and so on. There's a wonderful quote from Picasso that says, "Inspiration exists, but it has to find us working." And what that means, of course, is you're not just all of a sudden, you've never painted before, and all of a sudden, hey, I've got this great idea for a painting. It means that if you're actually drawing or making sort of some kind of researchy work towards it, or even if you're just thinking about it, you might be, because I have this studio here, which is not where I live, I walk half an hour to where I live. When I'm walking home, I might be thinking about a problem with a painting, and I'm thinking, what will I put in the background? What will I put in the background? And I might see a shop sign, or I might see someone walking past wearing something a particular colour or whatever. You might say, that's what I need in it. But you only get the idea for that because you're mulling it over, because it's there. So you can get ideas from everywhere, but you're only getting those ideas because you're actually working.
You have your ideas, where do you go from there? Do you have a sketchbook or a board where you put up like a bubble of brainstorming ideas? Where do you go?
All my work really comes from drawing. So when I get an idea for something, which as I said is usually grown out of other things, I will usually go to a little sketchbook like a visual diary, and I will start doing what I would call compositional scribble. They're an idea of like, if I've got people in them, do I have the whole figure? Do I crop it? Do I have them to one side? Do I have the other side? What else is in there? You know, just thinking, scribbling drawings, working it out. And then from there, I will then do a more detailed drawing, or I will do a little study, a little version, little painting, just to get an idea of how it might look, and then I will start the real thing. If you can actually see it, it makes so much more sense than just thinking about it. So I have piles and piles of these. Is that whether you do it in a book or whether you do it on sheets of paper, you need to do it on. You need to not be precious, and you need to not say this has got to be gorgeous, and it's got to be just any old thing. So it might even be on really cheap, crummy paper where you're not thinking, oh my goodness, I've just wasted. You're not wasting it. You're actually trying to look at your thoughts. Your thoughts are in here. You want to see them. You know, not all artists do that, what I just said. People do all sorts of things. It doesn't really matter what you do. But generally speaking, you want to try and to actually work it out. And the best way to work it out is to either draw or maybe to make some kind of collage or whatever. It depends on how you work.
What are your thoughts about photography? So taking a photo of a subject or working with, images.
There's nothing wrong with using photographs. I don't use photographs, but there's nothing wrong with doing. You can use anything if it makes a good painting. It's not cheating. There's no cheating. That's rubbish. It's whatever. If it looks good, it's fine. What I don't like is paintings that look like what I call a hand-painted photograph. And what I mean by that is, you get a photograph and you copy it as neatly as possible. That's it. To me, that's really boring. You may as well just have a really good photo. Why would you copy it neatly by hand? The materials that I use, when I'm painting, I paint in oil, and I paint on canvas or linen. The reason why, oil is not a more grown-up version of acrylic or the serious thing and the other one's for kids. They're not. They're both grown-up things, acrylic and oil. The reason why I use oil is because I like the fact that it stays wet and I can wipe it off, I can rub stuff into it, I can do things like that. Acrylic dries fast, and people who like acrylic like the fact that it dries fast and they can paint straight over it. I'd rather be able to move it around. So they both have their own qualities. It's about how you work and how you think as to what suits you. Drawing, I draw in pretty much everything. I draw, but particularly a lot in charcoal and also in gouache, which is opaque watercolour. I use that a lot. They're all sort of painterly mediums, so they're a bit, even though charcoal is obviously not like paint because it's a stick of charcoal, but you can still get kind of swishy, solid marks with it. It's not a fine line, it can be, but it also can be broad areas of tone.
Can you talk us through about your space? So tell us about this area in particular.
Well, where we are is where I've been painting. I mostly paint around here in oil. And so what we have here is we have tins of paint. Mm-hmm. There's a tin of oil paint because I use a lot of it. When I finish at the end of the day, I pour water into the top of it, and it won't mix in because it's oil paint, mm-hmm. so it won't mix in. So I just tip that out. And then I would scoop the paint out onto my palette and paint. You need a lot of big palette. So I use these tins, but I also use tubes, large tubes of certain colours. So I don't get little ones because a little one goes really fast, and you don't want to be worried about thinking, oh, I've only got a tiny amount, I've got to be really stingy with it. You need to say, should this be purple? Put plenty of it on. No, it's awful, scrape it off. You don't want to be too precious, so it's good to have plenty. These are oil paint in stick form. Mm-hmm. So when I use these, I use them because they have a special texture. You can just paint, like draw with them, and then get terps or odorless solvent, which is like terps, any kind of thing like that, and then get a brush and you can dilute it so it looks like paint. But my view is, why would you do that? You may as well use paint. So when I use them, and I do use them quite a bit, I use them for texture. So I will do draw, and I will actually try and get some texture on it. And I like to contrast in a painting some areas of thin, swishy paint with a big brush, and then rough, scratchy kind of texture with one of these. And then because I'm painting in oils, I need to have lots of brushes. You can't, with acrylic paint, you can use the same brush, swish it out in water and dip into colour and then paint. With oil paint, you have to have different brushes for different colours. So you can see even with these, red ones there. I mean, if I was trying to paint a pale yellow thing and I was using this, it's obviously going to go all black and yucky, so I wouldn't use that one. I would use a light one. And so then I would actually mix my paint on here. This jar has got odorless solvent, which is like turpentine, and oil, a bit of linseed oil, and I can mix the colour on there. I mix the colour until I think that I've got the right colour that I want, and then I will put it on the painting. And if I don't like it, I will just wipe it off. Those things that you think about as a figurative painter like me are the same things that you'd be thinking about if you're an abstract painter. You're thinking about, how does that colour work with that colour? Is that too light? Is that too dark? Is this shape too big or small? Or you're thinking about those same formal things, except that I'm also drawing a picture as well.
So once you've done your sketches and you think, yep, that's kind of what I want to do, are you then strictly confined to that, or is it constantly changing once you're actually in the painting process?
It's constantly changing, so it's not like... And some artists don't work like that, and it's not really right or wrong. Some people change it a hell of a lot so that wherever it starts out, it ends up somewhere completely different. And other people design it very, very carefully and precisely and might grid it up or by whatever means, and they've got a very, very carefully prepared maybe a little study or drawing, and then they transfer it. But I don't do that. I would have an idea, but it will still evolve, because once it's a painting and once it's usually on a bigger scale and all of that, it's a different thing, and it has to have a life of its own. So you might have thought, I want this thing to be yellow, or I want these things to be in the background, or whatever it is, and then when you see them you think, no, it's not right now. So you need to be able to keep looking, thinking, how is it going, and do I want to change it? It's good if you're working on more than one thing at a time, because that way you don't get too hung up on the one thing. And there are also lots of good ways to try and get yourself to see it freshly. With the little drawing in the sketchbook, or I'll do a little drawing in the sketchbook, and then I often write numbers on the little sketch, and I'll write 1, fix the hand, 2, should there be something in this corner, 3, should this be green, whatever. So I write little notes to myself at the end of the day, and then when I come back the following day, I read the list of things that I think I need to do. Sometimes when I see them the next day, because you've had a gap away from it, I think those things are not the thing I need to do. It looks fine. There's something I didn't even see. And that's why if it's good to have breaks, even if it's just 15 minutes where you just walk out of the room or go and look at a book or whatever, just get away from it for 15 minutes, or work on more than one thing at a time. The other thing I do is this mirror, which is a cheap mirror from a $2 shop. I hold this up to a painting, so if we pretend there's a painting here, I will stand there like that, looking at the painting, not looking at myself, looking at the painting in the mirror. See what I look like. Looking at the painting in the mirror, and so what I see in the reflection is the painting's reversed. And if you've never done that, it's a really, really good thing to do, because it doesn't mean it should some very weird, complicated thing about looking like it's reversed or goodness knows what. It just gives you a fresh look. It's almost like you've put it away for a week and now you're seeing it freshly. And you notice things that you didn't notice because you're looking at it for long periods of time, and you get used to it and you don't notice things. Seeing the reflection, suddenly it's like a new painting that you don't know, and you notice lots of things that you wouldn't have seen. So it's a very, very good little tip.
How about work hours? Is it 9 to 5, or is it, you kind of wake up in the middle of the night and go, look, I need to go to my studio?
Well, I used to have a studio at home. It was upstairs at home, and I used to do different hours there. When it was at home, I generally started about 11ish in the morning, because I was usually doing other stuff, and then I would work till 10 o'clock at night, which sounds really long, but it's not, because I would have tons of breaks. I now have this fantastic studio space, which is half an hour from where I live. I live in a different way to what I used to, so I'm here all day. So when I come, I'm just here, and I work all the time. It's a huge space, so it means I don't need to have those little breaks in that same way. I can be painting here, and then I can go over to another part of the studio and do some drawing or sort through something, or I can move around the space. And I'm usually here from, it's like 9 to 5. I didn't realise that, but it is. It's usually from about 10 till about 6 or 6:30, which is kind of like 9 to 5 moved along, and pretty much 7 days a week. I'm here virtually every day because I want to. It's a wonderful space. I love it, and it's what I want to do.
During your process, through your experiences of painting and you're creating your work, do you ever think of who will be looking at your work? So the audiences, who might view your work, or is it purely about you and your work?
Always a question has to be, is what's it for, or is it for anything in particular? I mean, some people would be, well, they could be doing things for themselves. So if there are my visual diaries, those sketchbooks, they are for me. Mostly what I'm doing, though, is working for an exhibition. So I show in different galleries around Australia, and I'm usually working on a whole body of work, usually on a theme, for a different gallery. For example, I've got a show coming up in a couple of weeks' time in Perth, which is on the theme of burlesque, and it's a whole lot of work that's on this particular theme. And then I've also got an exhibition coming up in a few months' time in Brisbane, which is connected with Matisse, and there's a whole lot of work about that. So I am thinking about, I'm sort of thinking about the audience, but I'm mostly thinking about a collection of work that I will be showing in these galleries, and hoping people will buy them, but and obviously, I want people to buy them because that's how I live. But I mostly really want to make sure that it all looks good, and it's something I'm pleased with, and also something I'm really interested in.
So it's not like they really affect the way that you want to paint. It's you're having that in the back of your mind, but you're still doing what you want to do.
Yes, that's true, and that's a different thing between also for people who work on commissions, which I don't. So that means, that someone says, can you paint a picture of me, or can you paint a picture of this thing, and I will, pay you for that. I don't do that. I actually make paintings for exhibitions that I've come up with the idea, and I've come up with all of that, and then I'm making work on something that I care about, and then I'm hoping that other people will like it. This is a painting that I've just finished, which is going to be in an exhibition up in Brisbane, and it's an exhibition connected with Matisse. I was staying recently in a house that Matisse actually lived in the south of France, in a place called Vence, which is near Nice, down south, near sort of towards the Mediterranean, and an incredible house where he lived during the Second World War. And I also was working in an apartment next door to the one that he lived in Paris, with the same view of Notre Dame, and I did a lot of paintings in both of those places, not pretending to be Matisse, but just working in the same place and looking at what he looked at. And I made lots of paintings which I then brought back to Australia, rolled them all up, brought them back, but they're all quite small because I did them over there, and I thought that for this exhibition it would be nice to have some large paintings too. So I got this woman she's actually a performer, but she's also an artist model called Ricarda, who came and posed for me. She brought this incredible hat, which is just fantastic. They're her clothes. And she sat for me, and I painted her in the studio. And there are Matisse, even though it's not like a Matisse painting, there are Matisse references like this, which is a Matisse painting. And also this material behind her is a type of fabric that Matisse owned, and he had that kind of material in some of his paintings. These faces in the background, I like the fact that people wouldn't know what they are, and I like the fact that they would be a mysterious thing where people could make up their own story. Where they actually come from is painting, which is over there. This woman who was modelling for me, Ricardo, was sitting in front of one of my paintings, which has these faces, which actually came from when I was a war artist in East Timor. I've got this there, and those faces come from that. But I don't expect people to know that, and I don't really want people to know that. I don't care if they know it, but what I'd like them to do is to use their own imagination to think what they could mean. So they could be, they could be something she's thinking about. They could be people who were there before. They could be anything. You could write a long list of things that they could be. And I think that's much more interesting than everything being literal. This is done in oil paint, and it's also done in oil stick. That's oil stick. You can see the texture. I've deliberately left that texture because I want it to look different to this more. She's painted more smoothly, and this is a rougher texture. This is painted on linen, and it's linen that's been sealed so that I haven't painted it white or primed it. I've just painted on the linen, but it's been sealed, because if it wasn't sealed with something, it would sop up like Wet-X. So it's got a coating on it. And what I wanted to do was to leave some of the linen without painting. So this is finished. I want to actually leave some of this blank. I think it's more interesting if it's not all filled in, but some has to be filled in, otherwise it just looks unfinished. That's that. So that's all this stuff from behind us. And then it's got my initials there. There's a bottle of champagne which is sitting on there in there. So yeah, it's what I could see, but it's still slightly changed around. But as you can see, it's based on her actually sitting there in front of me. I consider myself an expressionist painter, and I've done some which are very emotive. This one is obviously less because it's a painting from life from someone sitting around the studio. But I would still like there to be some kind of narrative or some kind of story or something underneath that's like what's she thinking about, who are they, what's going on.
Yep. Do you ever have someone come in? Do you ever go to that point of someone come over, have a look, what do you think?
Yes, I do, because in the next door studio is my partner Bernard, who's also an artist. And I can do that with him, which is really good, because he understands what I'm doing. So I can say, what do you think? And I do. And he does that. We both do that. It's actually good to get feedback from someone else.
When do you think it's finished? When do you go, that's it? Or does that never come?
Oh, it does come. But it's a good question always about when do you think it's finished. You can't always know. Like, you think it's finished and then you look at it and you think there's something wrong. And I find that if there's something that's worrying you, that's really worrying you, you keep thinking, well, like, I don't like the way I've drawn that bit, or maybe that's too complicated, or that's... If you keep thinking that, then it's not, and then you need to resolve it. But when I'm painting, I want the paintings to look... I don't want them to look laboured. I want them to look like it's quite a spontaneous thing. I want it to be fresh. And to get that often means I need to paint something many times quickly. So I'll paint it. Should it be like this? No. Wipe it off. Should it be like that? No. Wipe it off. And again until it looks right, whatever that is, until it seems to feel like it makes sense. What looks really good in one painting can look terrible in another. Each one has to set up its own kind of world and its own logic. It's like a movie or a novel or something, which if it's a surreal kind of weird novel, anything can happen, and if it's a realistic thing, perhaps they can't. So it's about setting up its own parameters and its own world of what makes sense and what suits it.